Shoulder with Kieran
with Nissan
on News Talk.
Lots of boys and girls up and down the country over the next few weeks, maybe some have already done it, writing letters to Santa Claus. But according to a survey published today, beyond that letter sent to the North Pole every year, only about 1 in 3 kids will put pen to paper and send a letter to anybody else over the space of a year. Will this generation mark the end of letter writing as we know it? Well, our reporter Andrew Louth got the thoughts of those on the streets of Dublin City.
I think it's nice for them to get something in the post that's for them specifically. Yeah.
It all depends on a certain age group. I say, like maybe 10 or 9 upwards. You know, because to be sort of, I suppose, really knowing what they're doing and what they're not doing. Like, you know.
We got a survey in saying that a third of kids have never experienced it. So why do you think it's important that they do?
Oh, I don't know. It's just something that we had nice when we were growing up. Like, you get excited now when you get one.
I have 3 kids and they do, and they're always talking about wanting to post this, that or the other. But yeah, especially at Christmas time, we find that they do.
And what's their kind of reaction like when they do get the letter?
Love it, absolutely love it. My son gets a magazine through the post, so he's always dying to open and just receive it. And it's excitement, and it's good because they can read the postcards or whatever.
Yeah, that was people speaking on the streets of Dublin to our reporter Andrew Louth. One passionate advocate for this particular art is letter collector and curator Liz Maguire, who's with me now. Liz, you're very, very welcome to the show. Are you surprised at all that a third of kids, only a third, will write a letter? I was a little surprised it was even that high, to be honest.
Hi, thank you very much for having me on. You're right, I believe the future of letter writing is with kids, so I was delighted to actually hear it was that much, because I think, you know, there's a real trend in cell phones and all the TikTok and things like that, and I think getting kids to write letters is the way the letter's going to survive.
So what's the pitch then for writing letters? Why should more do it?
One of the things I usually say when people ask me about why young people need to write letters is it's a great way to connect with older generations. So as a collector of antique letters, I find that, you know, being able to read over these antique letters or these found letters, I'm able to meet people in a new and different way. But I think when you send a letter to someone you know, especially when you're a kid writing to a letter to maybe a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle who's moved abroad, you can really learn about them in a different way than if you were sitting across the table from one another. And it oftentimes improves that relationship so much more. That
you can be you can be a little more frank, maybe a little more open and honest in a letter, because you're less embarrassed. No one's looking at you.
Absolutely, and you know, letters don't have backspace bars and you can't delete things, and so whatever you may put in a letter, you might not read it over again, even yourself, and send it off. And they can often be like fingerprints. You know, you can learn a lot about a person by what they put in a letter.
Have you always been an avid letter writer? Is it something you came back to?
So I started collecting letters in 2017, but I wasn't able to find a pen pal community. And then during COVID, there was a pen pal resurgence, if you will, on Twitter. And so a lot of people started exchanging letters, and I became involved in that way. But I'm there. I'm a big fan of sending the post, and like your clips there, I'm a big fan of receiving it as well.
So, I mean, do you suspect more and more people then did start to write letters? As you say, you found the community in COVID. Was that because the community was expanding, or they just became more vocal, or what happened?
I think that it's a combination of both. I mean, there's amazing organizations, like there's the Handwritten Letter Appreciation Society, there's charities like From Me to You, which matches donated letters with folks who have cancer. And then there are other people who have always, like myself, said, you know, I'd love to write someone a letter, but, you know, I'd be worried about sending it to them and them not expecting it and thinking it was awkward or whatever it is. And the thing I would say is that, you know, if you want to write a letter, don't be concerned about how the other person might find it bizarre that they're receiving a letter from you and they could get a text from you just as easy. Just remember that feeling of when post comes through the door and you say, you know, imagine them receiving a letter, and 99% of the time they'll be delighted.
And do you only ever send letters when you actually have something to say, or do you ever just sit down and think, do you know who I haven't written a letter to in ages? Kieran in News Talk, and I'm just going to sit down and I'll write whatever comes to mind?
Yeah, no, it is. It is often sometimes you can feel like you need to save up experiences to put into a letter and say, dear Kieran, today I did this, that, or the other. Yeah. But I think the beauty is if you do the daily observations, those are really time-capsule moments in letters.
All right. Well, listen, Liz, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks a million for speaking to us. Liz Maguire is a letter collector and curator.
The Hard